Imagina por un instante que toda tu vida te hayan enseñado a aferrarte con fuerza, a luchar, a forzar que las cosas sucedan. Desde pequeños escuchamos que debemos perseguir nuestros sueños con uñas y dientes, que solo los fuertes vencen y que rendirse es sinónimo de debilidad. Pero, ¿y si el secreto no estuviera en apretar más, sino en soltar? Yo soy Alejandro Andrés y estás en el canal Carl Jung, el inconsciente colectivo. Si esta reflexión te llamó la atención, suscríbete ahora mismo, porque todos los días comparto un nuevo contenido para que avances con fuerza en tu camino. Escríbeme en los comentarios desde qué ciudad nos miras. Quiero conocer tu realidad. Imagine for a moment that your entire life you were taught to hold on tight, to fight, to push, to force things to happen. From an early age, we're told we must chase our dreams with everything we've got, that only the strong survive, and that giving up is a sign of weakness. This mentality takes root in us and begins shaping the way we see the world, as well as how we relate to our deepest desires. So we run after relationships, careers, material achievements, almost always carrying the feeling that we need to do more, be more, have more. But there's a paradox that challenges this logic. Carl Jung, the explorer of the human soul, noticed throughout decades of studying the mind that there is an invisible force at work in our lives, a kind of hidden intelligence operating behind the scenes of our consciousness. And this force doesn't respond well to pressure, to excessive control, or to the anxiety of wanting instant results. What Jung discovered is both revolutionary and liberating. Many times, we receive exactly what we've longed for, the moment we stop chasing it with obsession. It's when we release our grip, when we stop trying to control everything, that we create space for life to flow in our direction. This isn't about passivity or giving up. It's about gaining a deeper understanding of how the human psyche works and how we can align ourselves with the natural forces that guide existence. And it's about this fascinating paradox that we're going to reflect on today. Perhaps discovering that letting go may be the most direct path to everything we truly desire. Throughout life, we're conditioned to believe that only relentless effort guarantees results. We grow up hearing that nothing comes easy, that we must run, persist, and never stop. This mentality plants inside us a constant sense of urgency, as if life were a race. Against time, and any pause would mean failure. But what we rarely notice is that in trying to control every detail, we become prisoners of fear. The fear of losing, the fear of not being enough, the fear that something won't go exactly as planned. This silent fear is what traps us in the cycle of attachment, where we believe holding on tighter is the same as protecting our dreams, when in reality it's precisely what pushes them away. Jung observed that the unconscious responds in the opposite way to excess effort. The more we push, the more life resists. It's like trying to hold water in your hands. The tighter you close your fingers, the faster it slips away. The human psyche carries within itself a delicate balance that asks for trust and openness, not rigidity and control. This means that clinging to much not only limits our choices, but also creates an energetic block, an invisible barrier that stops the natural flow of life. When we let go, we break that barrier and make room for the unexpected to unfold. And many times, that very unexpected brings us exactly what we had been chasing so hard. The real challenge is accepting that letting go is not the same as giving up. We can still desire, dream, and take action, but with lightness, without imprisoning life in the demand that everything happen exactly the way we imagined. Letting go is trusting the movement of existence. It is recognizing that there are forces beyond us that quietly collaborate once we stop fighting against them. And there lies the paradox. It's when we release control that we open space for life to deliver, with far more ease, everything we truly long for. When we look closely at our own experiences, we realize that some of our greatest breakthroughs didn't come from exhausting effort, but from surrender. Think of the times you were so obsessed with reaching something that everything seemed stuck, as if every door were closed before you. And then, in some moment of fatigue or surrender, you simply let go. It was in that very instant, when you stopped trying to control every detail, that things began to flow naturally. This dynamic is not coincidence. It is the way the unconscious and life itself operate when given space to manifest. Jung understood this process as part of a greater intelligence, one that goes beyond logical reasoning. The conscious mind, always restless and desperate for immediate answers, struggles to accept that something lies beyond its control. But it is precisely the unconscious, with its symbolic language and mysterious movements, that often opens unexpected paths. When we force too much, we shut down that inner dialogue. When we relax, we allow intuition and synchronicity to surface. It's as if life were waiting all along for us to loosen the rope so it could lead us across the bridge. This surrender is not an invitation to conform. On the contrary, it requires maturity and courage, because letting go does not mean abandoning our dreams, but transforming the way we relate to them. It's not about giving up the desire for great love, a solid career, or a personal project. It's about releasing the grip, that suffocating tension that convinces us we are incomplete without immediate achievement. When we understand this difference, we become lighter, and lightness opens doors that rigidity never could. There is also a deeper dimension to this act of letting go, one that goes beyond psychology. It touches the spiritual. When we release, we are acknowledging that we are not the absolute center of the universe and that there is a greater, unseen order guiding every step. This order doesn't need to be defined in religious terms, but rather as the intrinsic wisdom of life, an intelligence that connects events, encounters, and even obstacles in ways that guide us toward growth. By letting go of the need to control, we make a gesture of trust in this higher force, allowing it to reveal paths that our conscious mind could never map out. But trust isn't built overnight. It requires practice, because from an early age, we were shaped to believe that only conscious effort builds the future. We must relearn how to look at life with different eyes, to notice the subtle signs that appear when we stop resisting. Many times those signs come as what seem like simple coincidences, unexpected encounters, or opportunities that arise the moment we decide to take a step back. Jung called this phenomenon synchronicity, the mysterious convergence of events that seem charged with meaning. It is as if life were responding to our act of letting go with a clear message. Now you are ready to receive. And here lies the central point. Attachment creates noise, while detachment opens space for fertile silence, the place where intuition blooms. When we are too busy trying to manipulate outcomes we cannot hear, the inner voice that guides us. But when we release, a surprising clarity emerges, as if a veil were lifted from our eyes. It is in this space of trust and openness that our true desires begin to align with what is essential. And life then delivers not only what we want, but also what we deeply need. We often confuse attachment with love, with dedication, or with responsibility. We believe that holding on tightly is proof that we truly care. But in reality, attachment is born from fear and insecurity, not from genuine devotion. True love, whether for another person, a project, or even ourselves, only blossoms where freedom exists. When we try to control excessively, we suffocate the very things we want to protect. In relationships, attachment breeds anxiety, jealousy, and mistrust. At work, it creates exhaustion, self-criticism, and the constant feeling that we are never doing enough. It is a vicious cycle. The more we cling, the further we drift from what we desire. Letting go in this context does not mean abandoning love or commitment. It means allowing them to breathe. It is opening space for the people we love to be who they are, for the projects we dream about to grow in their own time, and for our own abilities to flourish without the suffocating pressure of perfection. It is recognizing that life is not a straight line, but a rhythm of ups and downs, of advances and pauses. When we accept this rhythm, we discover we don't need to fight against the current all the time. We can learn to swim with the flow, and that movement is infinitely more sustainable and more joyful. Jung understood that the human psyche wears itself down when it tries to maintain absolute control. The unconscious is not an obedient machine. It resists the rigid imposition of the conscious will. This is why so often we find ourselves exhausted, paralyzed, or anxious, even when on the surface it seems we are doing everything right. What we lack is not strength, but trust. By letting go, we don't just recover energy, we also restore harmony between the conscious and the unconscious. And this balance makes us more whole, more authentic, and paradoxically closer to everything we've been searching for. One of the greatest illusions of the mind is believing that letting go means losing. This belief keeps us tied to situations, people, and expectations that no longer serve us, but that we keep carrying out of fear of emptiness. Yet emptiness is not the enemy. It is the space required for the new to arise. When we insist on holding on to what is already worn out, we occupy the very place that could be filled by something truer and more aligned with our path. It's like a house cluttered with objects we no longer use. Until we create space, we cannot welcome anything new. Life works the same way. This process demands courage, because letting go of the old means facing uncertainty. Human beings crave security, even if it means staying in painful situations. We prefer the familiar over the unknown, even when the familiar keeps us trapped. But it is precisely in this leap into the unknown, this act of trust, that the greatest transformations occur. Jung recognized that the unconscious often works through symbols, and that what we release on the outside can open the way for deep changes within. When we let go of a relationship that no longer nurtures us, for example, we give the psyche permission to reorganize itself and create room for more authentic experiences. That is why letting go is not a gesture of weakness, but one of strength. It requires maturity to admit that certain things have already fulfilled their role in our lives, and humility to allow the new to arrive in its own time. The paradox repeats itself here. What we most desire cannot appear as long as we insist on holding what no longer makes sense. Only when we create space, only when we have the courage to trust the emptiness, can life surprise us with something far greater than what we had imagined. Another essential aspect of letting go is tied to our identity. Many times we cling to versions of ourselves that no longer reflect who we are becoming. We hold on to roles, titles, and images we once built to be accepted, even when we no longer recognize ourselves in them. This attachment to identity is one of the most subtle and difficult to release, because it is tangled up with our self-esteem and the way we believe others see us. Yet Jung reminded us that individuation, the journey of becoming who we truly are, requires courage to abandon the masks the ego has built. As long as we remain tied to what we once were, we prevent our deeper essence from emerging. It is natural to feel fear in the face of this transition, because letting go of an identity feels like a small death. And in fact, every authentic transformation carries within it tiny deaths that make way for more genuine rebirths. Life invites us to move through these cycles again and again, but the conscious mind tries to hold on to a fixed state, as if freezing who we are were possible. The truth is, we are always in motion, and the more we resist this flow, the more painful it becomes. When we finally release, when we allow old versions of ourselves to remain in the past, we open the space to live more fully, more authentically, aligned with what truly resonates within us. This release from rigid identity also transforms the way we relate to others. When we are no longer trapped in the need to prove who we are, our connections become lighter, more sincere. We no longer chase constant approval because we recognize that our value doesn't lie in maintaining an image, but in living the truth of each moment. And it is at this point that life begins to reward us. More meaningful encounters appear, opportunities that align more deeply, and experiences that reflect not who we pretend to be, but who we truly are. As we observe the dynamics of letting go, we notice it often emerges in moments we least expect. How many times has a major breakthrough arrived only after a period of pause, silence, or even apparent stagnation? It is as if life carries its own wisdom of timing, teaching us that not everything can be forced. This lesson becomes even clearer when we face crises. Difficulties compel us to release expectations, plans, and certainties. And yet, it is precisely from this emptiness that renewal is born. Jung believed the unconscious uses crises as opportunities for reorganization. What looks like ruin is often just the ground being cleared for something more solid to take shape. Still, it's not easy to see this while we are in the middle of the storm. Our minds crave quick explanations, immediate solutions, and when they don't arrive, the feeling of despair only grows. But letting go requires patience, because trusting life means accepting that the fruits don't appear the moment we plant the seed. They emerge only when the soil, the water, the sun, and time itself quietly align. This rhythm feels uncomfortable to our modern urgency, but at the same time it teaches us to cultivate serenity. Those who learn to wait with trust discover that time, far from being an enemy, is an ally in the process of transformation. And here we encounter another paradox. By letting go, we begin to experience an inner freedom that no material achievement alone can provide. It's not that our desires disappear, but they stop imprisoning us. We can dream with clarity, act with determination, and still remain light, because we are no longer carrying the weight of immediate results. This state of balance doesn't mean the absence of effort, but a wiser way of walking, a way where life and desire cease to be opposing forces and instead begin to dance to the same rhythm. When we understand the depth of this process, we see that letting go is not only a personal choice, but a movement that echoes through every area of life. The way we deal with inner attachments shows up in our relationships, in our emotional health, and even in our ability to create. When we hold on too tightly, we block creativity, we suffocate our connections, and we drift away from our own essence. But when we release, we make room for spontaneity, for more authentic connections, and for a lighter way of living. This lightness does not erase challenges, but it gives us the strength to move through them without being consumed by them. Jung pointed out that the psyche is always seeking wholeness, not rigid control over every detail. This means that by letting go, we are aligning ourselves with a natural movement of existence itself. Life doesn't ask for perfection, it asks for presence. It doesn't demand that everything happen at the pace of our anxiety, but instead invites us to trust the flow that reveals what is needed at the right moment. And when we accept this invitation, we discover that life is less about conquering through force and more about allowing what is already ours by nature to manifest. It is in this state of openness that meaningful encounters, unexpected opportunities, and everyday miracles appear more often. Quer que eu continue como bloco. This path is not simple because it goes against everything we've been taught about control and the power of will. It demands practice, humility, and courage. But at the same time, it offers rewards that no relentless struggle could ever bring. By letting go, we rediscover the joy of living, without the prison of urgency. We recognize that life doesn't need to be a battle against the unpredictable, but a dance with the unknown. And that dance, when embraced with an open heart, leads us to an inner peace that becomes the true foundation of any external achievement. In the end, we understand that everything we desire does not arrive through force, but through surrender. Letting go is not giving up. It is creating the space for life to manifest in its fullness. Each time we release attachment, we open a door to opportunities, connections, and experiences that could never appear, while we remain trapped in the attempt to control every detail. Jung reminds us that true freedom is not the absence of responsibility, but the ability to act with presence and lightness, trusting that the flow of existence is guiding us in the right direction. And this trust transforms the way we see our dreams and our challenges. We begin to realize that we don't need to fight desperately to achieve, because when we let go, the universe responds in unexpected ways, often far more generous than we could have imagined. Life teaches us that conscious surrender is paradoxically the most direct path to fulfillment. Every experience becomes a teacher, every loss an opportunity for growth, and every silence a fertile space where new possibilities bloom. So as we reflect on the wisdom of letting go, we discover a principle that is both simple and profound. To release is to allow the essential to find its way to us. It is to trust with courage and patience that what truly matters will arrive at the right time. And in this process, we become more whole, more light, and more capable of receiving life in its fullness. The paradox Jung presents us is both an invitation and a promise. When we learn to let go, everything we truly desire finds its way to us, not because we fought for it, but because we aligned ourselves with the invisible force that moves the universe and guides us with silent precision. Hoy te propongo un reto simple pero profundo. Escribe en los comentarios algo de tu vida a lo que sientas que estás aferrado con miedo. Compártelo porque el simple hecho de reconocerlo es el primer paso para empezar a soltar. La vida no se conquista a golpes de fuerza, sino que se recibe cuando aprendemos a confiar. Soltar no es perder, es abrir el espacio necesario para que lo esencial encuentre su camino hacia ti. Y ahí está la verdadera libertad. Vivir con presencia, ligereza y autenticidad. Si esta reflexión resonó contigo, suscríbete al canal, activa la campanita y comparte este video con alguien que necesite escuchar estas palabras. En el próximo episodio hablaremos sobre cómo Carl Jung entendía la sincronicidad y por qué puede cambiar la manera en que interpretas tu destino.